What was the soundtrack to my upbringing? I had a few of them. For me to try to pinpoint it to one, if I had to, I would probably say like Choice Is Yours by Black Sheep. That was the first album I was introduced to, A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. At the time, like, you know, my mom, she was a gospel singer, so bringing like that explicit shit into the house, she wasn't really rocking with it, but whenever she left the house, we used to just put it back in the deck, and like that album, I would say, like changed my life, man. It was different. It was the first one I was introduced to. There was a lot of hip hop circulating at the time, but that's the one that stood out to me. Yeah. A real memorable live performance, I'd probably say Center of Gravity in Vancouver, because Center of Gravity is a festival that happens in BC, and one of the main reasons why it stood out to me is we've been talking about festivals for a long time, but like we never got a chance to be on a festival stage with like a sea of people. Like there was at least like 5,000 to 7,000 people in there, and when you look out, it's just a sea of people, man. And like standing in front of those people that have never seen you before, man, and somehow when you leave that stage, your name resonates with them. That's the shit right there. That's that feeling that like we got into hip hop for. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the most memorable things. And another memorable thing about that performance is I remember it was a long night basically, but I remember the light was so long, we was just drinking, and I left the venue with the microphone still in my pocket. You know what I'm saying? And like, that shit was funny because the next day I had to go bring it back, but it was memorable the whole night, from the beginning of the performance to how we rocked the stage of people, man, and left with our name branded in their minds, you know? For me, it's always been about, well, especially now where I'm at in my career now, it's always been about like progression. Like for me, life is about like whatever you have, like the natural attributes that God has given you, you take those and you add additions to them. So for me, it was like I always knew I could rap. I always knew I could formulate bars and put those together. Now I'm like, 5 years in, I'm like, what else can I do? Now it's like I'm start exploring with melodies and melodic, you know, starting to write for other people, and like even a creative vision, like, yo, like storyboarding my things from the inception of the idea to the execution of it, and making sure it doesn't look like anything else that's been out there. So adding all of that to your repertoire, it's never been a point to take away or subtract from the shit you have. It's about adding to it. So anyone that's not evolving like that, to me, is like, I can't even really match that energy no more. Like, so my creative process is just making sure that I add additions to my shit that makes sense. And as long as I'm doing that, man, like there's no ceiling for what I've been doing. How do I know when a project's finished? I know by listening to, from when I started the beginning of a project, you know, from the intro to, I usually start with like the ending on how the project's gonna end. So if I have that piece and I'm solidified and I'm good with it, and there's only a few like people I instill trust in to run my ideas and my music by them, knowing they won't like bring, you know, toxic energy to it or even fucking steal the music, like, so, or steal the idea. So when I have all that in place, I just know that when it feels good, it bumps. Like, you know, I don't like to sit and live with it too long because the album will never get done. I'll just keep adding songs to it. So at a point, you have to just set a completion date and it's setting goals, man. That's when I know it's completely done. And instead of revisiting it, taking that energy and putting it into a new project, taking that momentum and carrying it over, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.